Hey, what's up guys, Eddie here as DJ11 from JaetMusicStudios. Today we're looking at the composition of our bass lines and how to get them to fit with our lead. First we're going to look at the impulsing between the lead and the bass, and then we're going to demonstrate a different technique to get that bass line driving along like today's trance music. Let's get to it. So this is somewhat of a forgotten technique in trance music production. There's a lot of uplifting trance productions that just revert straight to that machine gun style, uplifting trance bass line. Essentially they all sound the same. There isn't much of a relationship between the lead and the bass when that technique is used. There's nothing wrong with it, and I used it in the past, and it definitely has its place in trance music production. It's a very good bass line. But when you're looking for your track to gel just a little bit more, this is a somewhat of a forgotten technique. So what am I going to do here? Well, first things first, I'm going to create a kick and a bass line. In the Energy and Trance Leads video, I introduced the concept of impulsing, harmonic and rhythmic impulsing. Link in the description. And the fundamental principle behind this concept is to reduce silence in the MIDI. At the same time, we don't want to lose our rhythm. But how does this principle relate to our bass line? Well, in trance we get a lot of rolling bass lines where there isn't a lot of transient space for the leads to sit. Instead, they tend to be separated by frequency. And very similar to introducing harmonic and rhythmical impulse within the leads, we can introduce a counterplay between the leads and the bass. And we do this by sharing the highest motif in the lead. So if I have our lead here, copy all of that into our bass. And what I'm going to do is delete everything that's low. And then I'm going to make it all the same pitch. So this is the motif of our bass. It is not a machine gun bass, it is not a rolling bass, and we're going to see how it goes with the track. Okay, so one thing to note here is that the MIDI is not all the same length, so I'm just going to fix that up now. So what we've done here is we've taken the top line of our lead and we've made that rhythmical pattern the same as the bottom for our bass. And as we played that back, I'm hoping you can hear the familiarity between the two and how they kind of work together. It's not very interesting just yet, but bear with me here. Just listen to how they work together. And obviously these sounds are not fun, and we'll work through that. In terms of composition, I mean, I've already composed the lead. I should have composed the lead and the bass closer together. I'm just going to have the bass follow these notes, but it's not going to follow the same motion. One of the important principles in counterpoint with harmonizing melodies is to try and apply contrary or oblique motion as often as possible. Here it's climbing up, therefore here it's going down, and in the beginning it's climbing up, in the beginning that's going down then. So similar motion there, or the same motion there. Okay, so let's see how that goes. So the composition is there. Now, what else do we do? One thing you can do from this point is to introduce counterplay between your bass lines. What this means is to introduce a second instrument that has a different timbre that kind of weaves in and out of the bass line so they kind of work together. Sometimes you can go one step further and have maybe an arpeggiated sound. We might do that here, we might do it, or we might just do it for shits and giggles. I just want to demonstrate this counterplay. There's no rules here in terms of what MIDI to apply or what MIDI pattern to apply. I would suggest, because of the complex sounds with the uplifting trance lead, to make it as harmonious as possible. So don't get caught up doing thirds or sevenths or ninth chords, those kind of MIDI notes. I would typically stick to perfect consonants, i.e. firsts or fifths. But I'm just going to move in octaves here, see how it goes. Okay, that's kind of working. Let's program a quick timbre around that. Okay, so you hear how this bottom bass line and this top lead, they really work together in concreting the motif of the track. And this raspy bass line, which could do probably with a bit more resonance, isn't the point of this though. This raspy bass line really drives the track along. Take it away. So what's the point of doing it this way? A trance track never starts with the lead. It just doesn't do that. It doesn't work in the clubs. DJs want to be able to mix in the tracks with bass lines and introduce elements accordingly to build up tension within the song. But if we apply this technique by having the motif in the lowest part of the bass line, it subconsciously imprints the motif before the melody is even introduced into the track. And that way, when it is introduced into the track, it feels right. It feels like it fits. It's important that it happens this way. Between this one, we could probably add a bit of delay on that one. Wouldn't specifically do it like this. If you wanted to have a sharper transient, just quickly, we could add a second envelope. Across, I want to keep that same rhythm happening across here, so it's nice and predictable. Then match the notes. Definitely need to sidechain. Just do a little bit of track spacer. Okay, that is a good but forgotten technique of how to get your trance bass line to fit in with your lead. Just to recap, what we did was we took the highest motif in our lead and we made that the lowest part of our bass line. By doing this, this generates a high-low relationship that we call impulse, a harmonic impulse. That's very, very good and very old. It's good to use this technique sparingly. I wouldn't do this with every instrument in your track. Otherwise, you just wouldn't get enough contrast. But between the two most important elements being the bass and the lead in a trance track, this is a good and forgotten technique. So there you go, guys. If you found this content useful, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the underground dance music production content coming from JaetMusicStudios. And if you're looking for some one-on-one tuition, hit me up at JaetMusicStudios@gmail.com for a free 30-minute consultation to see what you need to take your productions to the next level. Alright guys, happy music making, and I'll see you in the next one.